Hey YouTube, this is Kevin Bowen of Bowen Small Engine, and today in the floor, guys, you guys are obviously going to see that I have my bow drill kit here. The reason that it's here, guys, is I want to do a video basically explaining to you guys how I go about getting these materials to make a bow drill set. I want to start off by telling you guys I always prefer sycamore, okay? Don't get me wrong, there are other woods out there that you can use that work equally as well, if not better. But here locally, I prefer the sycamore. And as I said, guys, this is typically the size that I try to find. And I'll probably make a hearth board out of this later on. Now you're going to note that these are extremely dry. You can probably even hear it. You definitely need dry materials to make a bow drill set. Okay, if there's any moisture in it, you could be potentially setting yourself up for disaster. It's just not going to work. Now what I do to prep my boards before I actually turn them into spindles or hearth boards is I actually will take them to my mom's house, who has a Amish made wood burning stove, and I will set them behind it for like a week, maybe two. And that'll generally draw out enough of the moisture to where I can use them, okay, in a bow drill kit. You can even see where I've even applied some of them to the top of the stove. You can see little burn spots here on this spindle, as well as others, like right here and here. These are just some that I'd carved out at the creek. And of course I've got a little fancy with some of them as well. I'll use a hand plane to make them, as well as a Tommy Hawk to basically carve out the shape, and of course I'll use a knife to help aid me in straightening the spindle. But as I said, guys, there are a lot of misconceptions out there, and people will lead you to believe that you can just take a piece of sycamore or tulip poplar, cedar right off the ground, or even go out to a tree, if you will, and even break it off, and that is so simple. You can just make a bow drill set, you know, right there on the fly. And that might be true depending upon the weather. But as I said, typically if there's any rain that's occurred, snow, really damp conditions, if you will, you're going to have a very difficult time basically getting the ember. Okay, you're going to get a lot of smoke, but no ember. So I just want you guys to know that. Okay, it's definitely worthwhile to prep the materials that you intend to use before trying to carve out your bow drill set, if you will. Now I want to note, guys, that obviously you're going to see I have lawnmower string or rope, if you will. And the reason being is I actually prefer it over paracord. Okay? The paracord, in my opinion, it's, for me, it's just not very effective. They typically will pull apart, and it can cause just a mess. Depending upon the quality of it, I should say. But as I said, I've never had an issue with lawnmower string, if you will. And that's obviously what you're going to see here on this bow. This is the exact same string. Now, note, guys, that you're going to obviously see a bellow here that I've recently purchased. I really like it. I didn't give very much for it, guys. I think this bellow costed like $2. And it can definitely help you when you're trying to apply just a little air to that ember, or coal, if you will, to get it a-going. And I'll admit that, as I said, I've used it several times since receiving it. I really like it. Now, there'll be a few of you guys ask me, well, Kevin, if you're making these on the fly, what do you typically use to cut the boards? And guys, I'm going to be honest. There's a lot of people that will tell you You can baton these materials and they'll work, okay? And yes, you can baton your knife if you like, if you prefer. I personally don't believe in beating the hell out of my knife, okay? That's just my personal opinion, but as I say, there are those out there that really believe in batoning, and if you do, that's fine. I'm not poking at you. I personally prefer using the Tomahawk. As you'll clearly see on these boards that I have done, I'll actually carve them somewhat flat, as you can see here. And this here's just one that I split. Here's another good example of one that I carved out with the Tomahawk. But as I say, guys, you know, it's really just a matter of preference on the person that's actually making the set. Like I said, I personally don't want to take the knife that I'm using out there in the field and beat the living hell out of it. But as I said, guys, there are those out there that believe in batoning, and if they like it, that's fine. I have no issues with that. I noted in the other video that I have a bearing block that's homemade. And I'll be honest, I prefer this homemade bearing block over the natural ones that you'll find in nature that typically just have a little divot right in the center. I like this one, of course, because it's a bearing, it's friction free, if you will, and it just makes getting an ember so much easier. And as I said in my prior video, I actually need that because this knee here I have a lot of issues out of. It's very difficult for me to get down like I am right now and then get back up. So that's the reason that you're seeing this homemade bearing block, if you will. And as I said in the other video, it's very simple to make it. I basically just carved out a hole, stuck a 6203 bearing in it with a small insert, and I just kind of polished up the insert that I pressed along with the bearing, as well as put the antler, if you will, on a polish wheel. Now, obviously you guys are going to see this. This is a spindle that my cousin and I both made. I really like it. It's very ornate, as you can see. Is it necessary? No. It's just something fancy that we put together at his house. And I'll be honest, it's very, very effective. As you can see, I've actually used it, and it works exceptionally well. But as I said, guys, it's not really necessary. It's just something fancy that we put together for my kit, because basically I had such a fancy bearing block, if you will, that we just kind of incorporated the antlers, if you will, into the spindle. I personally will tell you that I use a hand plane to straighten the spindles. This is a good example of that. I'll take the hand plane, and of course I'll just use it to straighten them, because it's a convenience, and it really makes for a really nice spindle after you're done. Obviously you're going to see that I didn't on these, because as I said, I made these pretty much on the fly at the creek, and they do work. As you can see, I've actually used them, and they work great. They're not exactly the straightest spindles in the world, but they are effective. I haven't used this one yet. It's a little small. I doubt very seriously that it would work. It may, but I've never tried it. In the next video, guys, that I do, because I had a YouTuber give me a fairly harsh comment, I'm going to make a ember with this bow drill set, and I'm actually going to do a close-up with the camera so you guys can actually see the ember as it's established. Okay, I didn't really do that in the other. Basically all you got a chance to see was just the smoke coming up, and I just feel that maybe, even though he was kind of cynical and critical, maybe he may be right. Maybe I need to actually show that so that you guys can basically see for yourselves that you know, this is actually my method, and that it is effective. Okay, so until the next video, YouTubers,